but you left the bodies, didn't you?
Do you like scary movies, Sydney?
You have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. Don't need a TV.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk clear.
Over 1,600 titles, each for rent at just $2 the first night, and only...
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster!
Welcome to the Frog Brothers Podcast with your hosts, Justin and Alec.
Hello, and welcome to the episode number 24 of the Frog Brother Podcast. I'm your crazy, zany, wacko co-host, Justin. And with me is my esteemed colleague, Mr. Alec Cameron West. Hey, Alec, how are you?
Say, man, you got a joint on you?
No, man, but I bet you do.
Be a lot cooler if you did.
I'll tell you what I do have. I have a cool, crisp, refreshing Royal Crown Cola, established 1905. Me and my RC.
I don't know if they're going to send us, what they're going to send us first, like a cease and desist, or or if it'll be more like a restraining order. It'd be interesting to find out. Or you could sponsor
that blue
us and
thing I
send
got
us
from
money.
her.
Exactly. You don't want us exposing ourselves.
Hey, seeing as we're in Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals, I believe, have Pepsi bullshit at their stadium. They should fix that with Royal Crown Cola. I mean, the Royals have a crown for a logo. Royal Crown Cola, it's got a blue logo, some white on the can. There's a little bit of red in there, but they would be a much better beverage partner for the Kansas City Royals establishment.
I just got the best t-shirt idea for the Frog Brothers podcast. It just needs to look like an old RC logo, but it'll say the Frog Brothers instead of RC. You need to make this happen.
I can spoof the logo.
Exactly. Should do a little bit of that for me. I want that.
You want it. You need
like
it.
The old time.
You just want to believe it.
It craves it.
Can you believe we're already 24 episodes deep?
Yeah, 2 more episodes, and that's half a year's worth. We've been doing 1 a week since April.
That's pretty badass, man. We've been consistently consistent.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a baby, it'd be like 6 months in, you know? Be premature at this point, but...
I don't know if you know much about babies, but that's not exactly how they work. Now, a kitten or a puppy, on the other hand, 6 months in, that's a whole other story.
No, I'm saying a baby is premature at 6 months.
Premature?
Right.
Oh, I thought you said that'd be pretty mature, and I was like,
yeah, that'd be pretty mature.
I was like 6 months old. See, I thought you were talking 6 months post-birth. Not
No.
pre-birth. Not a premature child.
Pre-birth. Pre-birds are eggs.
A child.
3 minutes in and we're off the rails, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Frog Brothers Podcast.
We don't give a fuck what we do, because we just like to entertain you.
Pretty much. And ourselves. I'm smoking a blunt now. I'm sure you heard the lighter earlier. But, So, I did some shopping this week. Did you do some shopping this week?
I bought some Ghostbusters Flashlights at Spirit Halloween for the kids.
Ghostbusters Flashlights? Yeah, I bought
Flashlights.
Ghostbusters Flashlight. Oh, yeah. I did buy a Ghostbusters Flashlight also.
So would that be, if it was a fleshlight, though, can I ask you a serious question? Would it be Gozer or would it be Dana or Janine? I bet they'd have a whole line of them.
It'd be Vigo.
Well, they make that type
Vigo's
too.
mouth.
So they make the mouth and the butthole too. You might be wondering how people know that, but well, we have access to the internet, so that's how that goes. But,
we also
that's all
have
cool.
access to online ordering.
Same day
So,
delivery
you know.
for Alec.
Exactly.
You can watch him use them in his OnlyFans.
You know, you're living in a fucking dystopian society when you're locked up at home for a pandemic, but you could still order a sex toy and have it delivered in a day. That you
Priorities,
can fuck.
man. Priorities.
So, I also bought that flashlight there, and I bought a Halloween T-shirt they had with Michael Myers on it, and Laurie Strode, and it says a sitter's guide, Halloween safety. So
nice.
nice.
I really didn't buy a whole lot of crazy stuff. I bought some groceries and essentials for a living and all that, and then bought the movie Bone Tomahawk and some other movies on digital. So,
nice,
including
yeah.
Idle Hands and Final Destination and several other fine feature films. Bought Up in the Air, since you had mentioned that last week, so I need to watch that this week in my downtime.
We should do, yeah, we'll do that in November when we do, we're going to do Congo and Up in the Air in November at least.
Yeah, but we're in spooky season, kids. It's spooky season right
sure.
now. We had some cool weather up here last week.
Yeah, did you hear our spooky new theme too? It's just going to last for this spooky season, but I think I did a good job with it.
I mean, hell yeah. So spooky season is upon us, so we're talking spooky movies and some other normal stuff here as well. So, do you want to break us into the news here and tell us what's new in the news?
Well, I also, for those of you, like the one or two people who saw, I went on live on Facebook today, and the first time I went, I had to like go unlive. I had to end the video early because the camera angle was messing up because I had to turn off the Wi-Fi on my phone because the internet is so bad where I live that my phone streams better without Wi-Fi connection. So, there were no interruptions after I reconnected, but less people were watching. But I did open Goldar from the Power Rangers Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Lightning Collection from Hasbro. And that was pretty sick.
Yeah, I did check that out after work. Saw it, liked it. It's pretty good. Fun stuff.
Yep, I got those Back to the Future Micro Machines finally. And I found that that Jada die-cast mystery machine from Scooby-Doo, so that was pretty sick.
So you got some new goodies, but nothing too crazy since you are
Relocating to the city of Kansas
Yeah, so
City.
it looks like we'll only be doing one more phone podcast, at least for the time being, so...
one more
That'd be
remote
cool.
podcast before we start doing live and in person. Expect more videos and more shenanigans in person because, well, Alex's internet's been so bad that he can't even upload anything to YouTube. Every time he tries to, it just fails. And it's like, well, it's the definition of insanity, is trying the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So.
Oh, yeah. So, the last thing I bought was a DVD of the Scooby-Doo New Movies collection, which is the 70s movie series of Scooby-Doo shows, like longer episodes. And that's the one where they have they always have guest stars. So there's Don Knotts, the Three Stooges, the Harlem Globetrotters, the Batman ones, those episodes and stuff. So I watched a few of those this afternoon. It was quite nice.
Very nice.
But the biggest news for me might be that Dune trailer, I guess. I know a lot of people aren't necessarily into it. You remember last week how I told you it looked like it reminded me of the new Blade Runner?
Yeah.
It's because it's the same director.
Okay.
Which, honestly, is about the wisest choice you could make, I feel. So...
I mean, I haven't seen the original Dune movie that I can recall. I mean, I know it's like a staple there for some people. It's just one of those things that I never got around to. So I'll have to check that out to compare, and then probably read the story as well.
Yeah, the book There's like 9 books, I want to say, or something. There's a miniseries, but the David Lynch movie's the original, and there's a trailer comparison video out that shows clips from the original movie matched up with the exact scene that it is from the original movie, you know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Everybody
did that with a lot of
was,
the It stuff as well. So
everybody was thinking this was going to be wildly different than that one, though, but it's not. There's obviously going to be some more differences. It's supposed to be more loyal to the book series and stuff. But you know, it's like Dune. The original Dune series the book series was a huge influence on stuff like Star Wars, like that desert planet. You know,
yeah,
is Tatooine.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I could see where they're taking that from.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff, because it's like an older sci-fi book. I think it was written in the 50s or 60s, I want to say. Not 100% on that, but I do have it on VHS and a Blu-ray, so we will have to sit down and watch that sometime. It'd be good to do later on.
Yeah, I'm in.
That's all I've seen for news recently that I've been super into, as far as I know. What have you seen? Oh, other than Camp Cretaceous coming up. But
yeah, Camp Cretaceous is getting ready to launch. The movie Freaky, I think is coming out. And so instead of Freaky Friday or something like that, it's basically a similar take on Freaky Friday, except it's a serial killer and Vince Vaughn's in it. So, like, that looks kind of entertaining. It's Blumhouse or Bloomhouse, whatever you want to say. And that should be... I'm curious to see that, right? I think Vince Vaughn can be pretty interesting in some of those types of roles, so looking forward to something that I hope it's just kind of really silly in that regards, right? Silly with some, fun gore in there and stuff, so I hope they don't try to take it too serious, so I guess we'll just kind of see how that one comes out.
Yeah, the thing is about that movie, I feel like they're setting a trend with this. They might start doing this a lot with these horror movies from Blumhouse. Depends on if they make a third one that follows this same formula, I'm just gonna be like, yep, it's happening. And by the formula, I mean, let's take an old beloved comedy movie, turn it into a horror movie, take a twist on it, which is what they did with Happy Death Day. They're like, all right, let's take Groundhog Day, the concept of that, turn it into a horror movie. And this is the same filmmakers. I don't know if it's the same directors or writers, but it's the same people involved, at least same producer and studio.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that makes me weary about it. The fact that they even call it freaky is like, hey, we're referencing this clearly.
Well, I'm just excited.
Watched the trailer though, so
more or less for Vince Vaughn because he's done some good roles. He's pretty fun. He was in the Psycho remake, which that was a very interesting. I don't even know why you call that a remake so much as a reshoot, because they basically did they followed the original shooting script. Basically, is what they did. Obviously, there's a few things that were a little more intense and graphic in the new version, but for the most part, it was just a shot-for-shot remake, which is pretty strange to do. But he can play some pretty dynamic characters, so he does the funny stuff, and he also does some more serious roles. So
I'm still a firm believer that he should come back, and I would love to see his character back in the Jurassic, environment.
Oh yeah,
universe. I always liked Nick Van Owen. He was underrated. I know that the way they wrote him, he kind of like fucked some shit up. They fucked his character up a little bit, I think, but overall, that was one of my favorite parts of Lost World. Was his character when I was a kid, and that was before I knew who Vince Vaughn was. He wasn't famous for comedy when he did that.
Yeah, I mean, he could wind up being in the new movie. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but
I don't think they will, because I think they're trying to focus on what they have.
Yeah, but they are doing some Site B stuff on there, so that we might get some Easter eggs or something, or reference to him maybe. So that could be interesting, right? At least a nod, a hat tip.
I wouldn't mind seeing them bring back Nick Van Owen, Ian Malcolm's daughter. I would see being interesting, and I mean, hell, even the kids from the first movie, at least those characters, and Eric from the third movie would be interesting also.
Yeah, we'll see what they wind up doing. I mean, because if
I don't mean in Dominion, I just mean in the future.
Oh, yeah,
Because
no,
in
there's
Dominion, I think they have their plate full enough that I'm happy where it's at, just seeing those 3 original characters return with the other ones. So
Yeah, and I don't think, that's too big of a brand to not carry it on in some other way. So, I mean, I know it might get tired, like kind of 6 movies in, you're like, okay, what do you really do? Because, I mean, when you look at them,
if they go a Planet of the Apes way is what they should do if they're going to continue with this franchise and not reboot it or something. And I don't necessarily mean that in a, like, the original Planet of the Apes. I mean more like the newer Planet of the Apes, where you kind of slowly... Like, I see Dominion being very much like the movie, the newest one that came out. Not the newest one, but the first one in the newest trilogy,
Yeah,
with James Franco.
Yeah,
where you see a lot of them.
Where you see the change.
Yeah, and you don't see the real effects of it like thousands of years later or anything like Planet of the Apes, where, well, I'm not saying you see talking dinosaurs or anything stupid. I don't want to see that. I'm just saying like where dinosaurs have kind of like taken over regions or areas and certain shit, and it's like it's a different world.
Yeah, no, that could be interesting. I'm not sure what the future will hold with that, but they're gonna have to do something to keep it entertaining. But it's such a big property and brand now that they're gonna do something with it, and I guess we'll probably see how Camp Cretaceous does to kind of cover what else they might do. But there's still a lot of groundwork in between these things that they could cover and some other stuff. So I think there's a lot of possibilities with it. But I mean, when you look at the first 5 movies so far, really 4 of them take place on the island. Only 2 of them have some decent sequences as off island. Like, right, you have the San Diego Jurassic Park final act of The Lost World. But, then,
I'm fully, because of that, I fully support that Lost World is better than Jurassic Park 3, and I know Jurassic Park 3 has this like resurgence of popularity right now, but I like Jurassic Park 3. I still like it better than Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
The only
My
thing
order
in Jurassic
for
Park
those
3
movies
that
is literally the release order, so go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, Jurassic Park 3 I like less than Jurassic World. Mostly because, like, the only thing that was, like, really good in Jurassic Park 3 was all shit that was scrapped from the first 2 books that they didn't get to put in the first 2 movies. So it was
Which
like all
honestly
the leftovers.
it was good stuff to put that in there, though.
Yeah, but some of the stuff around it, though, wasn't amazing. So, like, that's kind of what was like, what?
Well, I like, example, everybody always brings up the pterodactyl cage or whatever, or the pterodon. I'm not sure what they are even. But also that boat scene. The only thing that's really dumb about that movie, I don't like that ringtone shit. That thing's kind of dumb.
Yeah,
that's kind of mildly. It's entertaining when you see it for the first time or when you're young, because I was really young when I saw it, so I laughed at that and thought it was funny and hilarious. But
well, to me, that just fucking ages the movie so bad now when I watch that.
Oh yeah.
And like Jurassic Park and The Lost World, like, they've aged very well for the most part, right? Just as far as like you being in the moment and in the movie and enjoying it. You're not like, oh, this looks so like extremely crazy outdated. Like, right, when you look at computers and stuff, it does, but with cell phone technology, like that ringtone was like such just the generic ringtone of an era that it was like, oh
yeah.
Like, to me, it's like the worst of the 90s, just like regurgitating that entire fucking movie, and you're like, please stop.
Another thing about The Lost World that people complain about is that, like, Ian Malcolm's not the same character at all. All right, well, I mean, he went through a pretty fucking traumatic experience. I wouldn't expect him to be the same. His beliefs were, if anything, exacerbated. So that, he believes things that he did in the first movie even more, I feel like. How he's like, you're wielding it like a fucking kid with his gun and shit.
Yeah, like his character evolution, I get it, right? Just him in general, like, he doesn't
especially because
repeat the same character, right?
Yeah, his kid's in that movie too. So he's around his kid and his love interest or whatever. So he's acting different because of that too, because he knows what he's seen some terrible shit happen. He's like, this is gonna fucking happen, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to deal with it happening to this woman I love and my kid. So he's just like immediately in a terrible fucking mood, and I get it. I get his performance in that movie, so I don't think it's as bad as everyone else.
Yeah, the only thing that they really missed at the mark on with that from the book, I would say, for Ian Malcolm's character in the second movie is just the way he's portrayed, right? I mean, it's not the character change, it's more the physical attributes, because in the book, you know, The Lost World, they talk a lot about how he had all those injuries from the first movie and how it took him to get over that and recover. So scenes where he's running and escaping dinosaurs, like, you know, he really has to struggle with that, and they make it a point to kind of discuss that and talk about it, and, you know, you don't ever see any of those physical ailments in the movie. So I think they missed the mark on that a little bit, but overall I'm pretty pleased with Jeff Goldblum's performance there. But
Yeah.
we got off topic again. Hoo-ah!
Yeah.
So
I
we
don't
got
care
an
about Jurassic
action-packed episode, so what do you want to move along to?
Another man's garbage.
So the movie is
Garbage.
The fuck did you say?
I said,
Another man's garbage.
Oh, sound like something off like fucking Dark Crystal or The Labyrinth there. You sound just like a Muppet creature. I was like, what the hell are you saying?
You'll never make it through the labyrinth.
Pretty much. So, Idle Hands. This is an amazing movie in so many ways. And
yes.
it's aged very interestingly, right? I used to enjoy this movie quite a bit in my younger years. Like, rewatching this now, it's like I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like as entertained, as engaged as I used to be with it. So,
Yeah.
and that happens sometimes, right? There's sometimes you watch a movie and you remember it different than you see it again, and obviously there's some movies that are better, and this one kind of goes down a little bit because it's very much a sign of the times, but there's a lot of fun stuff in there that I remember, so we'll get into it. So the cast in this movie is pretty impressive for such a fucking, like, I mean, it's Columbia Pictures, but really it feels like a fucking B movie just shot with professional equipment. If that makes sense, right? You know what I mean? Because it's so cheesy, so over the top. It just feels like it has everything about a good B movie and like all the cheesiness to that, but it's well done. I mean, you got Fred Willard in there at the beginning, which is kind of fun seeing him start the show off. You've got Nick Sadler, who's famously known for Twister in our universe. And then obviously Seth Green's Mick, Elda Henson's Peanut. And I was like, he looks so familiar. Yeah, it's because he's fucking Foggy Nelson in the Daredevil Netflix series. And and a lot of other
Sean
things
Whalen?
too. I don't have him on my list here, but you know, obviously Jessica
Because
Alba.
he's in Twister.
Oh, he is?
Who's Nick? Who does that guy play?
He plays one of the cops. He's the guy from Twister I wrote down.
Okay, well, the guy from Twister's Sean Whalen. The guy that's really geeky looking.
Yeah.
The cop. That's Sean Whalen.
Oh, okay. Maybe I wrote down the wrong name. Maybe I wrote down the other officer's name. But yeah, he plays Kubrick in Twister.
He's also in Jury Duty with Pauly Shore. He plays like the murderer that's on trial.
Oh,
and he's also
yeah,
in he's in That Thing You Do as their #1 fan. You know, the guy who's always asking about their shit and at their shows.
Uh-huh.
He's in a lot of 90s stuff. Good character actor. So I always recognize him, and I'm like, hey, it's that guy.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, Twister, obviously, so.
Vivica A. Fox plays a character in this movie, which is, like, way underutilized. Like, to me, she was one of the more interesting parts of the movie. And I felt like she should have had a lot more screen time.
She felt like she was straight out of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yes, she did. And, like, to me, like, that was awesome. And,
yeah,
man, like, this movie feels like with a few changes, they could have made it in the same universe as Ash vs. Evil Dead. But they do make a lot of in-joke references there and stuff as well, so it's pretty fun. And of course, you can't forget the old Tom DeLonge from Blink-182's appearance, and he says a cameo on, he's got a little cameo as a fast food worker.
Yep.
There's a Blink-182 song that was on the soundtrack that wasn't actually in the movie, so that was interesting.
That's funny.
And they play a lot of songs in this movie that actually don't appear on the soundtrack, because after I watched it last night, I went ahead and eBayed the soundtrack just for shits and giggles. So
one of actually, I will just say it, my favorite line from this movie is the interchange between Devon Sawa and Eldon Henson. I can't remember. It's Anton and P-Nubs, I guess, names. He says, actually, it might even be Seth Green. I don't remember at this point. But either way, he says, "Don't you watch the news?" And Anton says, "I hate that fucking show."
Yeah, pretty much. And ain't that the truth in 2020?
So, I wrote down a bunch of interesting notes from this. Obviously, the Tom DeLonge cameo was one of them. The same actor is the same hand actor for The Thing in Addams Family. Found that to be kind of interesting for his detached hand.
Yeah, he did both the Addams Family movies, the Addams Family and Addams Family Values, so that's pretty wild.
Yeah. There's lots of weed jokes in this movie.
Oh my god,
but
yeah.
I love it at the end when he's like, "I need my spinach."
Oh, yeah.
And he brings a bong over to him.
Yeah, they got a
Mighty
good name
Joe
for that
Bong.
bong, too. Yeah, Mighty Joe Bong. Yeah, I was going to say, I wrote that down because that's like straight up a follow-up to like Half-Baked where they have clever bong names. You're like, oh, okay, all right. Very much a sign of the times.
You got like Rob Zombie's, one of his most popular songs, Dragula, in there.
Yep, and that was huge at the time, right? What I did get a kick out of was when Anton wakes up the next morning after his parents are fucking murdered. He's just listening to headphones, like immediately getting out of bed, and he's like listening to a cassette deck, which is funny because like at the time you figured he would have had a tape player, or not a tape player, but like a CD player, like a something like that. But he's listening to Blood Clot by Rancid to start it off with, and you're like, oh, all right, that's a good tune.
Yeah. The actual score sections, they're really like kind of industrial, badass sounding shit. Really like that stuff too.
Oh yeah, the music they place in there, like, and clearly, like, since it's a stoner movie too, but they want it to have the spooky Halloween vibes, they kind of mix in some punk, and then, Sublime pops up several times and stuff, which is funny.
Yeah, I was about to say that about that Offspring stuff at the end. It's like, oh man, the Offspring when they're doing horror punk sounding shit is so listenable. But other than that, I can't stand them.
Yeah,
like
they re-recorded that
stuff
song.
they did. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah, the Beheaded song. Yeah, that's when they re-recorded their own song for the new movie because that was on one of their older albums, and like it sounds like shit on there just because it was like super low budget at the time. But the remake they did for that's good, and then they covered the Ramones. I Want to Be Sedated, so that was kind of entertaining there to have them in there. But my favorite part of that is just like seeing Dexter Holland getting his fucking scalp ripped off at the end. That's so funny.
Yeah. The gym that they shot that in is the same gym they shot Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Jawbreaker in.
Oh, hell yeah. That's awesome.
And we'll be talking Buffy later this month, or next month, rather. But
yeah. So the other thing that they did that's clever in this movie, right? They have the painting of the old farmers. It's like really popular. So they have they had like a pumpkin display of them at the beginning of the movie, like where they didn't put out the the lights, and Mrs. Tobias yells at Mr. Tobias when she goes looking for him, like, you said you said you blew the candles out. You could burn the house down. Blows the candles out, and then like when Anton's looking around the house later, the next day, he finds the fucking dead parents underneath the pumpkins in there, and I thought that was a pretty clever way to hide the parents' bodies in there because he's like just fucking clueless to it.
oh yeah, it was sick.
And then they have the cat eating the blood off the floor, right? Just like licking it up. You're like, yeah, that's some shit a cat would do.
This movie really has really good vibes for me because I watched it when I was really young. This is yet another movie. Both of these movies tonight I watched at Nathan's house, which I don't know how many fucking movies I say that in front of, but goddamn, Nathan, if you're listening to this, thank you for the exposure of some of these movies that I could not get at home.
It's not that you couldn't get them at home, it's just that I'd moved out by then, so...
Well, you hadn't moved out by then, but it's like you weren't...
You know,
this movie came out in the theater.
Yeah.
You were going to go fucking see it with your adult friends. It took, at one point, when you're able to start going out and shit, you don't hang out with your younger siblings when they're 6 years younger than you. So that's just what happens. So I had to find things on my own.
Yeah,
for a
and I
long
traumatized
time.
you so good with Rumpelstiltskin that you probably didn't trust my taste in movies for a while after that.
Rumpelstiltskin and Child's Play 2, specifically. And Child's Play 2, I also put a clip of that in our intro because of that.
Hell yeah. So, continuing on, so what else sticks out to you about that movie?
What else excites me about this movie?
Yeah. What
All right, I'll tell you. The scene, you remember the scene when he pushes the dog out
Yeah.
in front of him?
Yes, he's fucking using the dog to protect him. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, if you look down, the dog also has a job at a makeup counter in that scene.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's fucking
He has
hilarious.
a sizable erection for a dog, anyway. So
I'm
that's
glad
pretty
you noticed
amusing.
the red rocket.
Yeah. I was like, oh, hey, I've seen that before.
That's awkward.
maybe it's Maybelline. So that was funny. That got me excited for a minute because I was like, oh, I'm gonna write this down. Dog. I don't think I've ever really written the phrase dog erection down, so that was cool to write down.
There's a first for everything in life.
I'm gonna show this journal of movie ramblings to my therapist and say that it's like my manifesto.
You should just get that tattooed across your forehead. Dog erection. You look like you got some street cred that way. Like, don't fuck with that guy.
That's fucked up.
I mean, we're already in weird territory, so when the going gets strange, the strange get weird.
Pretty much.
So I do like how he cauterizes his wound after he chops the hand off, and he tries to use the bagel slicer. He's like, dude, that thing won't even cut my bagel. And then he just, like, fucking see the blade get dented off, and then you have P-Nub's mouth just fucking bite it. I love that his best friends are dead but come back to life and just are hanging out with him, right? That's why in the Sidekicks segment we did a couple episodes back, I was like, oh yeah, man, like, those two fucking idiots in this movie are just there, like, going along. It's fun.
Yeah, so another thing I love about this, like you're talking about his friends, they're dead, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that how they make them come back to life when they're just like, no, we saw that light, but then we were like, fuck it, or whatever.
Yeah, we
That's
saw
funny.
the light and said, fuck it, yeah.
And then when
Then
they come back and he eventually duct tapes his head to it, and he's eating the fucking burrito and shit, and it's spilling out of his fucking throat. It's so nasty, but it's so hilarious.
Oh, it's so well done, too, right? Because, like, how do you make something
Right.
gross out of that, but it perfectly fits the scene? Because I like how they take the, the barbecue fork, basically stab the head on, and then he shoves it down the fucking body, and you're like, oh, man, that's brutal.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up, but it's also hilarious.
And I love
It's great.
how Seth Green's character has that fucking bottle on his forehead the entire time.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
And then he's yelling at him from the grave, like, hey, man, come out here. We're not dead. I think I must have just passed out.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the other thing that was kind of funny, so when he's with Jessica Alba's character, Molly, when Anton's with her, and he, like, makes the move on her and, like, grabs her butt because the hand's possessed. And she's like, I never thought you'd have the balls to do that. And, like, she's all into it. And you're like, you're out there giving people the wrong hopes. Like, you can't just go around doing that bullshit.
I read that she was 17 when they filmed this.
Yeah.
Also.
Yep.
That's kind of weird. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of her first larger roles, to be honest with you.
Yeah. If you can call that a larger role. Hey, you don't need to be barking. It's the Dog Brothers Podcast.
Yeah, and so the Debbie liqueur, which is funny because they make a liquor joke, like, Debbie liquor. She's like, it's liqueur. And then like you look up the spelling and it's actually spelled Lecure. So like, okay. And then I do like how, you know, they've got this whole scene at the dance. The whole scene at the dance is like pretty fun, right? Because it has vibes to like all the typical like prom scene dance movies and shit, you know, like where there's like kind of a funny vibe going on in there, but yet here they have the fucking punk band playing the whole time, like playing silly stuff for Halloween. And yeah, it was entertaining. I get a kick out of that. And then they, you know, they have Molly running around basically damn near naked after a while when she's strapped to the top of the car, and you're like, okay, got to have the sex appeal in there, right? You know, there's always those tropes that they just do in like movies. You're like, okay, so here's we're gonna have some titillating stuff in a horror movie, right? You know, they've pretty much make that sort of thing mandatory.
It has a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh yeah,
so it is truly another man's garbage. I know a lot of people like this movie. It has a big cult following.
Oh yeah, and it's probably like if you grew up watching that movie, you're gonna like it a lot more just because, you know, you see the jokes and can relate to it a lot better. Like if you were just a horror fan when that came out, I don't know how well that would have stuck and landed with you, but for me, like watching that at a young age, you're like, okay, that's kind of funny. To me, it was like around that era of American Pie where you just kind of get something a little sillier and like a horror movie take on like that teen comedy genre is kind of what this landed for me like.
Yeah. It definitely ranks way higher than American Pie for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I'm just saying, like, for that
watch
general
an American
audience,
Pie
right?
movie unless I was forced by gunpoint.
So you got that whole, like, just that style of movie at the time, right? So this kind of takes, like, what was popular and then this, you know, kind of takes it not too serious, but makes it a little bit darker, so.
Yeah. It was a good entry to the Devon Sawa double feature.
Yes, it was.
We'll eventually have to cover Night of the Living Twister. Night of the Living Twister.
Night of the Living Twisters. That sounds like a
Holy
sci-fi
shit.
fucking channel movie. I think you just made a new movie.
Holy shit.
We need to pitch that. That's going to be
We're
pitched.
writing that down.
Yeah.
Shark Tank.
Yeah, that's going in the Shark Tank. Night of the Living Twister. And he can fight his character.
I think we already pitched that because that's like the exact concept for our Twister 2 where Bill Paxton and Carrie always come back from the death and battle each other as Twister ghosts.
Night of the
pretty
Living
much.
Twisters. But that's more supernatural. That's like a Ghostbusters crossover.
True.
It takes place in Oklahoma. That could be a sequel to that movie.
Zombies are pretty supernatural.
Yeah, that's true.
But either way, that was Idle Hands.
Yeah, I like how they just cut his hand off and like they don't ever explain more about that. And like when you overanalyze any of this shit, clearly it's fiction, but you're like, I like how after they cauterize his hand, they go looking for a first aid kit. They're like, yeah, that's going to get really infected. Like coming from a couple of fucking dead people, and then they wander off to go find a first aid kit at P-Nub's house, I think.
Yeah.
I'm like, we can't go home. Like, we're dead. Like, your parents, and not everyone's got dead parents to not be at home.
Right.
So, pretty silly shit.
You want to do the top 5 this week?
Ooh, yeah. Let's get into the top 5.
Top 5. Top 5. Top 5. Top 5. Top 5. Top 5. Top 5. Top 5. Top 5. Top 5.
This is top 5. This week on Top 5. Bigfoot takes a big shit on himself and gets it caught in a fur. And's gotta take a bath.
Oh, wait. That's not top 5. Hey, so top 5 this week, we talked about Halloween. I said Halloween tunes, man. So stuff I want to listen to around Halloween. You might hear it at a Halloween party. You might hear it on a Halloween mixtape. You might hear it on one of those fucking massively produced store like spooky songs for Halloween. So what's your number 5, bro, Montana?
Number 5 for me is a pretty obscure one, at least in terms of mainstream culture. But, you know, people will know this song. Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus.
Oh, okay. There you go.
One of the original goth classics. And I love it. It's a good song. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it.
There you go.
It's like 8-minute fucking song or some shit, but it's really dark. Cool, kind of goofy, actually. Pretty sick.
Nice.
What's your number 5?
Well, my number 5 is Ghostbusters, but not Ray Parker Jr.'s version of it. It's the Attaboy Skip version of it, which is basically like the third wave ska cover that was kind of popular in the 90s, early 2000s. It was around there, and they never got the mechanical license to do that, so they got in trouble for it for a while, so you had to bootleg it, but I think they finally paid for a mechanical license to have it available, because I think now you can like just stream it on like some of the streaming music platforms. So Attaboy Skip, man, like that's just a fun version of it. So like to me that's like a party version. And like when we talked briefly on the phone about this list earlier, it was like, you know, there's always like a sound alike or just like a really basic crappy cover on there because they don't want to pay like Ray Parker Jr. royalties to have it on there, so they just do a cover, and it's cheaper for the mechanical license to just pay someone else to do it. And there's so many versions of that are just fucking absolute trash. So I had to pick a cover of it that was fun. That's something like you could hear that and not be like, oh, that makes me triggered. So pick that version. So you're number 4.
Number 4 is a punk band called the Dead Kennedys and their song Halloween.
Sweet. That's a good choice.
I like the bass line in that song a lot. Like that song a lot, like that album a lot. So, I kind of like to have some more personalized taste on all my lists. I always have some classics as well, but something like this, it's a little more personal. I know a lot of people aren't probably listening to that, but a lot of punk fans probably are, so...
Yeah, I mean, I could have easily just made a list of fucking 5 horror punk songs and been like, everyone else can fuck off if you don't know any of these bands, but...
right, but it is a song called Halloween, too. It's about that, so it's not just like a Misfits song called Astro Zombies or whatever else, but... Because I think the Misfits are a little bit overrated, but hey...
Yeah, I mean, I get that, right? But they're also accessible and easy to digest, so... And they do have some fun songs. Like, they do have some stuff you're just like, whatever. I mean, if you curate like all the good stuff off all their albums, you'd have a pretty decent playlist, but they're not a band I'm like, oh, I gotta buy every album and listen to every song on it. They're just not one of those type of punk bands for me, so...
Yeah, as far as the goth stuff goes, I'm more of Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus... Maybe some Joy Division if you consider that goth. The Damned, TSOL. Just never really got into the Misfits like it. Exactly.
All right, so my number 4 is Dance Macabre, number 40. And that's that song, like we used to listen to it in grade school. You know, I think some people put the lyrics to it like HALLOWWEN spells Halloween. And they had like the skeleton dance come out of it, right? But that's like a classic thing. I mean, to me, that's like, it's such a fun way to do it, and it's like got a really good, it's just a good song, man. Like that always gets me in the spooky mood, and like it's not, you can listen to it in front of everybody, right? It's just kind of one of those classics, like to set that vibe. Like I imagine that's the kind of shit like Edgar Allan Poe would have been like, God damn, man, this makes me want to fucking write. This makes me want to write some badass shit. You know, he gets all fucking hyped up for it. He gets hyped up to that music.
It reminded me of a song we used to sing at elementary school in choir or whatever. The fucking Igor song where it was like, yes, master, yes, master, yes, master, do the Igor. And it was fucking weird, and that's what you just reminded me of. And then I blacked out for a minute, so welcome back to me.
Welcome back.
So what's your number 3?
My number 3 is called Nightmare on My Street by DJ Jazzy Jeffers and the Fresh Prince.
Oh, fuck, son.
This is a fucking total classic cheese ball song, and it's awesome and epic. It should be on everyone's Halloween playlist. You need a little cheese in there.
Dude, that has a fucking epic music video, as I recall.
Oh, yeah. I just watched it the other day.
Hell
when I made this list, I was like, I need to listen to this song while I'm writing this list now. What do you got for number 3?
My number 3 is actually, so in 2016, the Misfits put out an EP just called Friday the 13th. And they've got some songs on there. They got a Friday the 13th song, which is pretty good, but the Nightmare on Elm Street song they have is pretty good. So, and the lyrics are fun on that. But it's just like Misfits. It's like, and the recording quality's good, right? If you go back to some old Misfits, like, you got to be a punk fan to appreciate that shit. You know, it's like if you're at a party and you play something that's like fucking super lo-fi that just sounds way out of place compared to everything else. Like this, you know, this doesn't feel so out of place with everything else, but it's fun. You know, like one of the lines is, you know, the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs. So they kind of get into the folklore of Freddy Krueger and stuff on there. So get a kick out of that tune. I always listen to that starting around Halloween or on like Friday the 13th itself. There's just 4 songs on there. So that's probably my go-to tune, because it's not like, oh, everyone's got a bunch of Nightmare on Elm Street songs they've written. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is by Bobby Pickett. It is the classic Monster Mash.
Hell yeah.
We did the mash. We did the monster mash.
The Monster Mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
Anyway, yeah, that one's badass.
Yeah,
Can I
that's fun,
say?
man, because like that's definitely like an old style pop song, but the singing style, like over this, the like regular rock pop song, like that's what makes that song work, and the sound effects and
Exactly.
stuff at the beginning, yeah, it's classic. Love that tune.
It feels like people. It's definitely a precursor to some goth back in the day for you.
Yep. So my next one's kind of controversial. My number 2,
Oh God.
mostly because the person's
Does it suck?
controversial.
Does a person suck?
No. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's rumors of that, but
Oh God.
it's
Who
by
is it?
it's by Wacko Jacko, and the song is Thriller,
Oh.
with the voiceover by Vincent Price. That song's fucking amazing. The music video to that is amazing. So we had some neighbors that lived up the street from us growing up, PJ and Ryan, and they were close to my age. One was a year older than me, one was a year younger than me, but I was friends with both of those brothers, and they had the music video to this, and it also had a making of behind the scenes video, so it was like an hour-long VHS tape, so you could like watch them doing the makeup and talking about it and shooting the video, and then you could watch the video. And just fucking seeing that, man, like that's always like such a great Halloween tune. And I say controversial just because, you know, Michael Jackson, after everything there, it's like he's one of those artists that's like just so mainstream, and there's like no, you know, people don't want to believe the allegations against him. It's just kind of wild. So, you know, you're just like, it's that debate of separating the art from the artist, and can you do that? And you know, for this song, like I had to throw it on a list because it's a fucking good song, and you know, it's one of those things you'd heavily debate. Like, I mean, if you look at the whole album, Thriller, it's one of the best-selling albums ever, but so much controversy on there, and I think a lot of people turn a blind eye to it. So it's controversial in my mind just because of that. So
Yeah, I'm fine with taking Michael Jackson off the table because I have Prince. I really just don't care. I way prefer Prince to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's songs I've always found to be like, I might like 1 out of 10, maybe 2.
yeah,
So I've just never been a huge fan, so it didn't make it on my list. I used to like this one a lot when I was younger, when I was
Yeah,
first getting into music that wasn't punk music and shit, but
yeah. See,
just don't care for it too much.
yeah, this is just, I just have the nostalgia memory of watching the making of video of it and like that whole thing, and how they make it kind of a short film, you know, because it's not just the music video. There's a little bit of story to it, and like to me, that whole thing sticks in my mind. So that's why it's on my list. But you know, I definitely understand why someone wouldn't have it on there if they didn't want it on there. You know, there's, like I said, there's some controversy around that you got to be aware of. So what's your number 1 then?
Well, it rhymes with Ghostbusters by Schmray Schmarker Jr. It's the Ghostbusters theme
I have no idea.
by Ray Parker Jr.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
That's just, it's the best. I don't have much else. I don't have an argument for it or anything.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean that's fine. But like I said, I picked a cover of that on there just because there's always those times where you just go to a party and like they're playing the sound alike and they're not playing the real thing. So like if I'm not going to hear the real thing, I want to have one that I really enjoy. So definitely see why that's number one.
I'm thinking more like I'm making a song playlist though, so that's what I put on here.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like this is all.
Because otherwise, everybody else is gonna have some of that fucking Superstition by fucking Stevie Wonder, and then they're gonna have Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon and shit like that. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that, but I'm good.
Yep. So my number one is Boris Pickett, Monster Mash. So I mean, you already covered it. We talked about it, man. But that's just to me, that's just such a fun song, and it's so old school, right? I just immediately have visions of like monster movies. Like the old school Universal monster movies, like playing in the background when I hear that tune, like, right? Just love that version of it. It's great.
Yeah.
And then the Misfits have an interesting cover of it too, which, they kind of make it punk rock, but it just feels like any punk band that covered it would have done it the same way they did, so it's not really anything
that the
special.
Album? Is that the album where they did a bunch of 50s songs?
Yeah, that's on that album. I think that came out in like 2003, like right when they started playing together again, because I think that was probably the one I saw him at Warped Tour one year. So, Yep, good stuff. But no, definitely the Monster Mash, badass tune. So, what are your top 5 Halloween tunes? Like, if you could throw 5 songs at somebody, or you're gonna make a Halloween mixtape or playlist,
here's
at
an
a party?
address. I should apologize for not having Time Warp from Rocky Horror Picture Show on my list. But it's not on my list because it's not. It's on my honorable mentions, and it's not on my list because it's the point of the song is not anything horror themed, But it is a good Halloween party song. It is one of the best you could possibly play at a Halloween party.
Yeah,
Somebody's Watching Me, Rockwell, The Specials, Ghost Town. I would also play those. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, I get it. There's a lot of stuff you could put on there, but what would you guys put on there? Just hit us up on @FrogRoastPodcast on social media and let us know what your top 5 Halloween tunes are. Like for me, I would also put on. There's a band that I played a show with once called Anti. They're a Florida band, but they had a song called Slumber Party Massacre, and that's a tune I definitely like as well. It's kind of about Slumber Party Massacre.
Movies.
Yeah, and it's a really fun
those?
song. Yeah, I've seen at least the very first one. I know they made several of them. So, but to me, that's just
I remember that. Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah, and that's
I
fun
because
it's like
CD you copied for me.
Yeah, it's like pop punk with just more of a punk edge, right? Like that kind of style.
It's a little
there.
harder than punk. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, kind of in between like pop punk, because the vocals aren't quite as smooth and stuff, and definitely a fun tune there. I enjoy that one.
Speaking of punk music, I was listening to the other day?
What's that?
First time in a long time. Gaslight Anthem. Haven't listened to them in a while. So I put on that old 59 sound the other day.
Yeah, like the longer they've been around, like I listened to them until they basically broke up. And then, when I revisit, I usually go back to everything through the 59 sound, like Senior and the Queen and some of the older tunes. Like there's some stuff on there I really like, but some of the other stuff is like, I feel like I never
really got past much that first album, but because I switched into other gears, but
there's probably,
I do like 59 sound a lot.
So. There's probably one really good album's worth of tunes or like a playlist for me to make out of their stuff, but they definitely had the vibe on there, like that album, the 59 sound definitely had the vibe of some of that old school I don't know, I'd almost say that's kind of like a fall album, because that kind of gives you like the fall vibes and that kind of chill, especially with like the reverb and stuff on the vocals and just the way it sounds, kind of leading you into spooky season. You know, I could see that being an interesting way to lead you into there. So
I also almost put some Reggie and the Full Effect on here because of just the music video for the one song when he's the monsters for I think it's J Train.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't put it on there. But that would be a pretty good Halloween party song, which...
Yeah, I mean, if you were to make and that would be a whole other list, would be like your top 5 music videos to put on a playlist, right?
Yeah. Speaking of Reggie and the Full Effect, I think that what we were just talking about kind of reminded me of what we were talking about last night, which was, or maybe it was last night. We were talking about Man-Eating Toaster, which is a possible band idea we're going to do.
Yep.
But I definitely think that what we were just talking about, kind of like an edgier pop-punk sound, but that doesn't lean strictly on guitar, bass, and drum formats and regular structures and shit.
Yeah, because you've got an assload of fucking badass synths that we can like layer in there instead of guitars or instead of bass in certain spots. So there's a real way to like do something that's feels kind of fresh within those genres, right? Taking those things you love and like replacing certain elements. So
yep, I always really liked what New Order did with their bass lines. They had Peter Hook had a way of writing where he would write a bass guitar line, like the simple lower notes, and then Bernard Summer, or can't remember Stephen Morris's wife's name, Gillespie. She would program the bass line, that one, on the synth, and then he would basically write like a more harmonic or melodic part to play on top of that with the actual bass guitar, like on the higher strings and shit, so you could hear it a lot better, and it was cool the way those always sound together.
yeah, you know, their stuff is unique in that way, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for that, but expect the Frog Brothers to grow and expand once we are
In person.
regularly.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to chat about that real quick, but we'll move on because we got some more shit to talk about.
We got a lot of shit left.
Let's go to retro release reviews. Talk some more Devon Sawa.
Devon Sawa? Devon Sawa? Is Devon Sawa in the room?
You know what I just watched?
Me pulling a can off some moron's fist?
Return of the Jedi. Did you see Alien? When that creature was in that guy's stomach?
Oh my god. Oh my god.
You ever seen that really old movie? Empire Strikes Back?
Jesus, Tony.
Welcome to Retro Release Review.
Retro Release Reviews. Brought to you by A Swift Kick in the Nuts. Sponsored by I Hate Your Guts.
Sponsored by RC Cola.
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, so this is Final Destination. And fun fact, I know we've talked about this before, but I don't know if the general audience knows that. The writer for this movie was trying to get into Hollywood like as a script writer in certain aspects right there. So he wrote this as a spec script for The X-Files. And they liked it well enough that they decided to expand it into a feature-length film and turned into Final Destination, which after...
It also has ties to a real plane crash incident with a real French class that died on it, as well as a Twilight Zone episode where a woman wakes up from a dream and shit in her dream starts happening, including a plane exploding after takeoff.
Yeah, there's a lot of references in there, so it's always cool to see like how people take influences and like try to make them fresh again, which right now everyone's just trying to reboot every movie that they ever saw that they liked by reusing the same title instead of doing like what this did and did something kind of fresh at the time, which was take what its influences were, come up with a new concept. Now it spawned 4 of its own sequels, but we're just not seeing the same freshness in mainstream movies
4?
at the moment. Yeah. Now that's not to say that TV isn't much fresher, right? Because I mean, if you look at what Black Mirror's done in contrast or in response to like it being a modern version of the Twilight Zone to some degree, despite the Twilight Zone making a comeback, which I haven't seen any of that because CBS has a paywall up on it, and I'm not fucking paying for anything extra CBS. They're not really.
I have heard it's awesome
special.
though.
Yeah, and I saw the box. I saw the season 1 on DVD at the store the other day next to the complete original series.
Ooh.
But I haven't heard
like
enough
the
good
complete
things
original.
about it to make me either subscribe to CBS All Access for a month or. Because let's face it, that's one of those services that if I subscribed, it'd be 1 month, write down a list of shit I want to watch and get through it, and then fucking unsubscribe because they don't have enough to really keep you engaged on there.
But obviously Devon Sawa was in this. You have Ali Larder, Sean William Scott, and the legendary Tony Todd. So...
Oh, yeah. Fucking Candyman. Hell, yeah. Yeah, his character
is
is
also
actually...
in the Night of the Living Dead remake.
Yep. So his character, and I've never seen... I don't know if I've ever seen any of the other sequels to Final Destination, but I guess
I have 2 and 3, and they are worth watching.
Okay, so this guy's...
The other ones aren't impressionable on me, so...
Okay, so Tony Todd was also in number 2 and number 5, from what I recall reading about.
Yes, and Ali Larder makes an appearance in the second movie as well.
Yeah, that's what I heard, so...
That one's worth watching for sure. It's actually arguably the death, like the whole sequence at the beginning is more famous because it's like a car accident with logs falling off and hitting other cars and shit on the highway and shit.
Yeah, you always
And
see the memes about that. Everyone's like, every time I see this, I think this, right? Or whatever, so there's...
Yeah.
That's inspired meme culture for sure.
Yeah, so... But we're talking the first one here, and I like all the John Denver songs and references in this. It just reminds me of the time that I flew on a really small airplane, and Justin would sing, "Ooh, ooh, I died just like Buddy Holly."
I know, that was such an asshole, because Alec was a little hesitant about flights. I've never worried about flights. It's like an Independence Day.
It was a smaller plane, though, too. There were no jet engines. It had propellers, and I could see out the front.
Yeah, I mean, I've flown on a flight like that once or twice, so, I mean, whatever. But, yeah, so I'd be like, ooh, yeah, whatever. I died just like Buddy Holly. And, yeah, I used to torture. That's right, boys. It's Dr. Venkman.
So, they'd used real news footage of the TWA Flight 800, which crashed in 1996. July 17th. That's the one that had the French class on it that actually did die and shit because the fucking plane exploded.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of time. Another cool thing throughout this movie is there's lots of references through to the numbers 180, because that's Flight 180. And then also Alex's birthday is September 25th, which, if we're looking at a calendar, we're not too far off from that date. But there's a lot of 9/25 and combinations of that throughout the movie, too.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I feel like that original movie wouldn't have been made after 9/11. You know, when this come out in 2000, so it would have shot in 99 probably. So I feel like, you know, that kind of changed the culture on that for a little bit. Like, I mean, I could see it coming out now, but just like within the first couple of years after that, I could have seen that as something that would have been shelved had it not been released when it was.
Yeah. Or at least delayed for sure a few years or something.
Yeah, and it's a fun movie. Like, right away they start foreshadowing what's going to happen. He's like talking to his son, and he's like, the dad's there, and he's basically like, hey, you got your whole life ahead of you. So the dad says that to Alex. So...
Right. It's some funny shit. Oh, yeah, the fashion in this movie is very hilarious.
I was going to say, that was my next line, was like the fashion. This, because like the bowling shirt and like khaki pants that Alex is wearing at the airport is like fucking...
It was like looking at an old picture of you in middle school.
Pretty much, yeah. I was going to say, it felt like fucking junior high. So
I was about to say, you weren't quite wearing that shit anymore in high school, but there was a time.
Yeah. There's a
looking
time,
fresh.
There was a time I looked like an asshole, and it's arguably I still do. So depends on who you are.
I feel like 10 years from now, you'll always look back and be like, man, what the fuck was I thinking? Always.
I mean,
Yeah.
In junior high and high school, that's really when you're like, I don't really fucking have any, I mean, the biggest change in my clothing style in like the last 15 years has been like, I used to go from wearing exclusively like band t-shirts to now it's just mostly like pop culture t-shirts. And that's mostly because I just don't get out to concerts as much as I used to, which is a little heartbreaking at times, but there's other stuff going on. So definitely need to get more back into music once the future arrives.
Yeah, there's a Nine Inch Nails song in this.
Yeah, there's some interesting tunes in here, right? You're not paying as close of attention to the music as this as you are, and like Idle Hands, like I was paying a lot of attention to the music in there. In this movie, I wasn't.
I was to that song because I could instantly recognize Trent Reznor and shit. So I was like, "Oh, this is a Final Destination soundtrack song," because he says "Final Destination" in the lyrics. So
yeah. Yeah, that's the one that you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Something else with the Final Destination.
It's my Trent Reznor.
So it's pretty interesting, right?
Because dies and his haircut's pretty lame.
Because they show the death scenes twice in the beginning of this, right? Because Alex basically trades seats with his buddy. Or trade seats to go sit by his buddy so like those girls can sit there, and his friend's pissed because he wanted to sit by one of these girls on the 7-hour flight. But before that, it was cracking me up. He's like, dude, he's like, I'm going to go poop before we get on this flight. And he's like, well, I mean, okay. He's like, the little bathrooms on there are like a little shack. He's like, do you really want one of those girls walking in the bathroom after you poop, after you've been cooped up on this airplane for so long, and like look you in the eye and see that you've done it? And I was like, but what you should really be worried about is walking in after she poops.
Right? I was thinking the same, kind of like, I'd rather poop here now just so I don't have to poop in that small bathroom with other people and their smells in that small bathroom and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought it was funny what they were saying, but like they never stopped to think that they might walk in after one of those girls pooped.
Yeah, I think it would be hilarious if I dropped a gnarly-ass stinker in there and then a chick walked in, so... Yeah, that's the difference, I guess.
You should be like, I got healthy gut bacteria. Thank you very much.
Or just pull an Ace Ventura and be like, do not go in there.
Woo! Woo! Had I been drinking from it, I could have been killed.
Exactly.
So he has that basically that night terror, which is pretty wild because they kind of showed the plane ripping apart and everyone getting sucked out of the plane, which was very Fight Club-esque to me too, right? When like he's having the fantasy about dying on a flight, like it was very much in line with that, like right how you see the plane rip apart in there. So,
and I love that scene in that movie because he's just like fantasizing about that happening.
yeah, he's just like fucking just do it.
He's like, yeah, this would be sick.
And then I like how after the crash, they're immediately like questioning these kids. Like nowadays, they would have fucking like arrested them and put them in a psych ward. Be like, how the fuck did you know about that? They'd have been investigating them for blowing up the airplane. Because like I said,
what was that?
I was gonna say pre 9/11, like it's a whole different thing. Just like even Meet the Parents makes a reference to that. Is like you can't say bomb on an airplane, right? There's just certain things like. Post 9/11, there's a lot of stuff that just changed culturally. So I don't think. I think they would have been much more scrutinized, right? And you can't tell a story if the kid just gets locked up and put in the psycho ward. So.
Yeah.
Or they're investigating him, or like when they let him go later on after he goes back and it's like, hey, I know who's next, like the next victim, and you're like, oh, okay, like they would have followed that motherfucker over there. And
yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's a couple little points like that where I was like, these FBI agents are retarded and stupid assholes, and it's just the writing.
Yeah, it's clearly the writing.
Could have just used just one more pass on that script, just one more.
Yeah, a little polish. Like, I guess once you take Mulder and Scully out of the roles there for the FBI agents, then it becomes a lot less interesting. Right. Just like if you would have
Mulder would have been like fucking all over that shit.
Oh yeah, and he would have, he would have had 100% buy-in on the kid having the vision. Yeah. So, like, why did he have that vision? So, I still think that would have been a cool concept to have them on there, right? So.
Right.
And And then they start killing off the other characters. Like the one guy slips and chokes in the bathroom, and like they keep doing this thing where they foreshadow, like you think you're going to get instant death and gratification, and
they do that throughout these the whole time, and it gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
Like there's some movies where there's 50 million things that you think they're going to die from, and it's just so that they can kill them in a slightly more unexpected way. But sometimes, you know, like one of the most famous ones is from the third movie. There's a girl who dies in a tanning bed.
Okay.
Like, she's laying in it, and there's a billion different things you think that it's going to kill her until you're obviously thinking she's going to die in the tanning bed, really. Especially if you've seen the other movies and you know that they tease you with other shit until they get to the big death.
Yeah.
But she dies in a fucking tanning bed, and then, you know, like it gets turned up so hot that the glass breaks and she falls on the bulbs, and it's hot and bloody and shit, you know?
Broken glass in it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, so this one, like, that whole bathroom scene, like, right there, like, oh, I'm like, oh, fuck, is he going to get blown through and get smashed his head in the toilet? Or, like, in the ceiling in the bathroom?
Is he going
like,
to cut his
toilet
throat?
Explodes? Yeah. Because I hadn't seen this in
fall
so long.
and jam
honestly.
those scissors up his nose?
Yeah, exactly. Is he going to trip then? Like, you think he's going to trip, like he cuts himself shaving, so there's all these little things that add up, and then he trips on a fucking metal wire and strangles himself, and you're like... I didn't really like that death. That death kind of pissed me off. I'm like, where's this metal wire coming from in the bathroom? Like, they don't really explain that very well.
Oh, that wire? It was the clothes hanger.
Yeah.
I've had one like that before.
Okay, I mean, I guess so.
I had that at my place in Phoenix at one point, where they have them sometimes in cruise ships and hotels and shit, you know, just a little string thing that you stretch across. I don't think it was metal, but...
Yeah, but I mean, to me, that death was very unsatisfying for the movie. Like, there's so many other cool things you could have done. Like when he fell down in the bathtub, I thought they could have just had him like knock his eye or part of his skull out, like on the bathtub faucet, instead of like choking to death on this thing. Like, I thought that would have been a much more gruesome, entertaining death to me. But
I don't know. I was pretty fucking horrified rewatching this. Even I kept looking away because. This is a really horrifying death to watch, I think, and imagine and shit. So it fucked with me enough that I was like, wow. If something has me looking away, I'm like, they're doing a good job with it. If I'm feeling really uncomfortable watching it, and it's a horror movie, bravo, you've done your job. And not a lot of horror movies do that to me. So when somebody does that, it's usually a random death scene like this, or a movie like Tusk that does it. A lot of body horror movies like Tusk and Videodrome and shit like that. Human Centipede, that's what really unsettles me. But I've never watched Human Centipede because it's also just too gross and gnarly, and I'm not into that. So
yeah, I've heard things about that.
Rant.
I haven't watched it. I'm not going to watch it. It just sounds fucking gross. Like people eating people's fecal matter just sounds like... It sounds like almost pornographic in a way that like someone was like into that to sit down and think and write about that. And I'm almost like, nah, it's fucking gross. And then you wonder why all the fucking new kids in these days are into eating ass and stuff. Well, they watched the Human Centipede, and I guess they really fucking took it and ran with it. We don't got to go any more into that. And if you eat ass, don't be offended by that. I'm just saying from my perspective. But psychologically speaking, it might be because you watched Human Centipede and really just, you know, it set that seed in your brain to go down that route. But dental dams, kids. Dental dams are good for those sorts of things.
Speaking of dental dams... no, I don't have a segue for that. No, we have a little bit of a new segment while we're going to be covering all of the upcoming marketing and merchandise for the release of Ghostbusters Afterlife next year. So, let's move into that segment with a little bit of a segue here.
How about some music?
Hey kids, Alec here with the Frog Brothers Podcast, reminding you to check out our YouTube where we have exclusive mail-time videos featuring collectibles, toys, comics, VHS, rare DVDs, shirts, pins, and more. Be sure to hit subscribe. Hit us up on Facebook and Instagram to see live unboxing videos and daily updates. You can find all of our podcast episodes up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and most places where podcasts are available. Keep an eye out for merchandise in the future. And remember, second shelf is mine. That's where I keep my root beers and double thick Oreo cookies. Nobody touches the second shelf but me.
Cry, little sister.
You're watching Cable 10, Somerville, Oklahoma, Access Channel. Ghostbusters, this week in the world of Ghostbusters. Hasbro PulseCon is coming up a little over a week. So I believe they're going to be releasing Tully's Terrible Night for sale during that. Am I correct in that?
Yep, and then they've also acknowledged that, like, if you pay, I think by September 21st, if you pay the $50 fee to be the premium Pulse subscriber, you get early access to some of those pre-sales starting the 22nd and 23rd, 2 days in advance of the actual PulseCon. So I don't know how that's going to work, because then, like, what's the point of having a con if people that are paying can, like, buy that and spoil and share all the photos from it? So I don't think they thought that out very well. I mean, they probably should have had the Pulse members be able to buy stuff those first 2 days,
that
and then have the
upsets
general
me.
public 2 days after, right? Or day one, whatever's available that day or mentioned, you could do. But to me, this just seems like a marketing snafu. It was like, what are you thinking?
My blood pressure is rising as we talk about this, because I didn't even know that. So now I'm like, shit. Are we going to have to... How many... Do they have limits on this shit? Are you going to be able to only order one?
It's to be determined, man. None of that's been released yet. So I guess my only hesitation with that is the way they've handled the Spangler one and some of their other releases recently, where, like, you are the toy manufacturer. Your distribution chain should ensure that you guys have first take on supplies, especially if you took pre-orders first.
Yeah.
I think they kind of screwed the pooch on that. I mean, but at the same time, if it's the only way to get some of their stuff, like Tully's Terrible Night, you're not going to have any option.
You have to pull that trigger somehow.
You just fucking have to do it, right? So, I mean, expect a delayed shipment again with that, maybe? I don't know. I mean, the product's going to be good. Like, I don't have any issues with that, right? But
I think we will be okay for Tully's Terrible Night. I don't think that's going to be selling out super quick. I'm not saying it won't sell out, but I don't think that's going to be one of the first things to go or anything, like within minutes or hours or anything, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, some of the Transformers and some of the other brand stuff may be a little different. And then I know Hasbro's bringing back some other brand of something I didn't recognize. They posted a teaser photo earlier, so.
Shit. Yeah, and I have to worry about fucking Power Rangers too.
Yeah, they've got a lot of brands, man. Star Wars stuff, you never know what they're going to release, so. I just hope these toy companies learn right. And I realize it's very difficult to be a toy company right now, because if you're working with a retailer on an exclusive release, that's difficult anyway. Like, look at all the Target releases that are through NECA. And, you know, NECA's kind of changed their tune by releasing stuff separately on their own, right? You know, now they've done some pre-orders directly through their site that's open for a week to ensure that the public can get what they want. And I think that's pretty awesome. So I just hope Hasbro is able to do that with some of these items. And the big thing is, it's like, yeah, shipping's inconvenient, but you just need to make it worth it to the consumer, because I would say, like, I'm a huge fan. I'm happy with Hasbro that they have the Ghostbusters license. They've done some awesome stuff so far. Like, so far, everything that's gone wrong doesn't seem to be necessarily anyone's issue, right? Some of that was Walmart's issue. Some of that was a trademark issue for who you're going to call.
Yeah, so
there's multiple things involved in there, right? And you just have to step back and look at it like, you know, first of all, this is a business that has operations to run, and, you know,
it's a fucking toy company, and we're in a pandemic. You have to understand these things too. It's just a fucking hunk of plastic. Also, settle your tits down a little bit.
Yeah, I just think that, you know, hopefully that this goes off.
Not you. I'm just saying in general, people.
Yeah, hopefully this goes off without a hitch and stuff ships and kind of rolls out as expected.
Yeah.
Because I guess my thing would have been like, you know, if Hasbro had said right away, hey, you know, we're going to, you know, in mid-August, hey, it looks like this isn't going to roll out as soon as we thought it was, you know, here's an update. But it was after people started saying that they got theirs early, especially like in the UK and some places where the shipping time wasn't, you know, the shipping wasn't the same.
Right.
So, I'm not super stressed on that, but it's like if you buy something, you just have the anticipation of wanting it. So, I just think there's that piece to it.
I didn't even pre-order the damn thing. I mean,
Now-
I actually did, but like only by like a couple days, and then
That being
I got mine
said,
before everyone else. So
that being said, I did email Hasbro about my address change because I didn't want to get charged extra for something getting shipped to my old address and then forwarding over or getting returned to sender. Like I had another item I'd done a pre-sale on, and it got actually returned to the shipper instead of being forwarded to my new address, and it shipped USPS. So just trying to figure that piece out. You know, it said it was undeliverable over there. So that's my main concern. But I emailed Hasbro customer service or whatever their customer service email address over 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't seen an update. Like that was like August 27th or something like that, maybe. And I had no response yet. And they're like, "Hey, don't open up more than one claim for your stuff." So I respected that, but at the same time, I'm like, a little worried on that front. But hopefully they'll get it together. Like I said, you know, try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Times are strange. Times are tough. Try not to be a dickhead about stuff, but at the same time, you're investing money in something. You just want to make sure you get it right the first time, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. So
I did order the Back to the Future animated series figures from NECA's eBay store. All 3 of those. There's only 3, so.
So what other Ghostbusters news do we have?
We don't have much other than how was that birthday party and how's the toaster build going?
Toaster build, I haven't done anything with. I need to look into some videos on that. And then we did a birthday party with the Midland Empire Ghostbusters on Sunday, and the day before that, some of the members went out and did a train event in Atchison, Kansas, which was pretty cool. They invited us back for a Halloween event, so they're able to socially distance and kind of interact with some people there that were there for some train stuff. So trying to have some sense of normalcy there, but while doing all that sort of thing. So like the birthday party we're at, there's only the one kid. It was pretty cool. It was fun just to gear up and take everything out. Like Nick has his roof rack on there, so
yeah,
and it's Ecto 1A style. So driving around, man, before like we'd get a lot of looks, but specifically this time, man, with that roof rack on there, like just the people taking videos, slowing down to look at you, wave at you, honk at you. It was pretty cool. So people definitely love Ghostbusters, and that's always a good feeling to see that they appreciate what you're doing out there. I guess the only other news piece I have, and not to start controversy or worry anybody, but Sony came out and said that they're not going to release anything over a $200 million budget until theaters resume normal operations.
Yeah, which who the fuck even knows what that means at this point?
Yeah, and so there's a few things. At first, I kind of had some worry. I'm like, well, I don't know what the budget was. They haven't really discussed that too much yet. But based off of Answer the Call and the overinflation of budget there, I think this movie's much more balanced. I
would say this movie is probably 100 million, maybe 130 or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't imagine it being that crazy. But at the same time,
maybe even like 80 million.
And people were saying they were worried about, like Tenet was like the first like big production that was dipping their toes in the water with it, but I think they've already they've already made 120 million, and that's really not terrible considering how few theaters that's playing on and how that's actually open. And that includes, I think, the international box office as well, which has done significantly.
Okay, that's why, because in America it's done 20 million.
Oh, okay.
Which I only know that because I heard Kevin Smith talk about it, because he was saying that's fucking Kevin Smith numbers, not Christopher Nolan numbers. And I just thought that was funny. But
yeah, I can't remember the article I read.
He
earlier
said it
today.
was doing really well overseas, just as everybody is in the pandemic in general, because they did shit right.
Yeah,
so
well, that's called...
Put on your mask and keep social distancing, motherfuckers.
Yep.
And I'll get over my stutter.
So that was my big thing. It's like, I don't anticipate that delaying, but it could, right? When I look at what some other films have done, the new Candyman remake was delayed indefinitely. They don't even have a new release date for that. Wonder Woman and... Let's see, there's...
Wonder Woman's what, December now?
Yeah, I got moved from October to December, and there's something else, but the other thing was, like, Top Gun went from December to next July. which the budget they spent on that, right, is way more than Ghostbusters, I'm sure, right, to work with the military on that and to do all those flight sequences and everything else.
Yeah.
I know
just Tom Cruise is worth more money than anybody in Ghostbusters Afterlife in terms of what he's going to want to get paid for a movie and shit, too. So.
Yeah, and so, like, seeing that delayed, that makes sense, right? That's kind of a December release on that would have been fine for me because, like, you don't have a Star Wars-style movie coming out this winter. But everyone just kind of everyone's just jockeying for positions right now, so I guess we'll just wait and see. Like, I wouldn't go into a panic yet because we've still got several months ahead. It depends on how people act and behave through cold and flu season, basically, right? Does this stuff get worse again, like really bad, or does it get better, or is it maintain, or what? So there's just so many variables in there right now that I wouldn't say don't get too worried on it right now, but the fact of the matter is the more time they have, it can't be terrible, right? So I guess the only thing for me, which, I think kind of, have some mention when they're talking about Bill and Ted, was that they weren't able to do any real reshoots because when they're editing, like, COVID was going on, so they couldn't do any reshoots, so they kind of had to use what they had available for footage, which, makes sense. I get that, so
especially when you're a low-budget movie.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, so what is Afterlife? Did they have a lot of pickup shots, or did they just shoot enough in advance that they didn't really have much? I mean...
What is Bill and Ted's budget? $3 million, I think? So...
I thought it was...
Wow,
it was pretty low. It was pretty low. I don't think any of the actors made a lot of money on it, so...
Was it that, or was it like 10 or 15,
I think it was like 10,
I'm
maybe.
not sure.
Yeah. But either way,
yeah, actually, I think you're right. It was 10 or 15.
You're going to look at it, and so either way, this movie's going to come out. Is it going to be inconvenient if it gets delayed again? Yeah. Are they going to be able to delay toys again and stuff like that? It's going to be harder and harder to delay supply chain stuff. So that's where you're going to see things go, right? I mean,
I'm getting anxiety.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think we'll be okay by then. But you just kind of see what everyone else is doing. People are being more proactive now, just knowing that our leadership in this country hasn't been great.
Tell me about the rabbits.
Yeah. Tell me about them goddamn rabbits,
George. Tell me about the Ghostbusters Afterlife, George.
So I think that's good.
Someday we'll be seeing Ghostbusters Afterlife in a theater.
Yep. Someday, somehow.
So that's it for Ghostbusters. Whatever updates this week, he said as he yawned. We do have some more Ghostbusters talk, though.
Of course we do, because it's time for...
We now return to the real Ghostbusters.
Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th. Entering the town of Twin Peaks.
Pretty good. Bill Murray's the funniest man on the planet.
Episode by episode.
Schmepisode by schmepisode. This week, Extreme Ghostbusters, episode 19, Bird of Prey. So, this one, another kind of middle-of-the-road episode. Not top tier, not awful. Good stuff in it. I do kind of like the lore of the episode, how they go into some shit about Norse mythology and shit,
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like, to me, I had fun with that piece. The only thing that was kind of weird was, they're trying to say they're, like, in Scandinavia and stuff, and, like, where this family's at, and then you're, like, realize they're just, like, upstate New York, basically, so you're, like, okay, like,
yeah.
The accents being weird and stuff, so it's...
Yeah, that was very weird.
Yeah, it's... There's some things on this, like, to me, this episode is very by their platform, like, by design, to me, right? So it does this typical thing where a young person has a problem, they use something supernatural, they think they can help solve it, and wind up unleashing something ancient, causing a problem, Ghostbusters come in and solve it. I will say, like, because this had some very, like, similar vibes to the Jersey Devil episode, right? I did like this character design much better for Reisvelg or whatever, however the hell you say that.
Yeah.
I had to turn on closed captioning to figure out how to spell what the fuck they were talking about, because, I figured they're basing that off real folklore, which they typically do, so.
Yeah.
But there's some fun stuff in the episode. I did like how it was, this thing was kind of a weather god to some degree.
Yeah.
The tornado when it was kind of fun, but it was kind of very bland in the grand scheme of things for me, right?
Yeah. I'd had a moment when the fucking things first showed up, and it kind of felt like you're watching a Jurassic Park movie with Ghostbusters in it. Because it even sounds like a shitty cartoon sound effect of a dinosaur.
Yeah, the sound effects for that are very typical of the time, right? It's like Jurassic Park kind of set that standard, and then everyone else is trying to mimic that for any kind of creature effects sounds afterwards.
Yeah.
Which I don't hate by any means, but like it's hard to live up to what some of those other sounds were for a low budget show. So
yeah, it's just a sound that you can hear throughout this series a couple times manipulated with other sounds and shit.
But at the same time, there's certain things in this episode that felt very 2020 to me. They're talking about, like record highs and lows, like within the same week. And, you kind of see them lounging around in their underwear or just like real casual clothes that you don't normally see the characters in, hanging out at the firehouse, like being miserable, and they're toying with the equipment because of the humidity and the heat, and Egon's concerned with that. So kind of an interesting concept. Some of this, I don't know, for the show's format, they add a fair amount of stuff in there that they just never have time to really develop, right? You're looking at about 23 minutes an episode plus intro, credits, and then sometimes the soft opening stuff, right? So you don't really get more than 20 minutes of an episode, so you've got to like bang out your whole story in that time. So
yeah,
I get why they do what they do with it, but it just felt like everyone was kind of taken off to write some of these. Now that said, there were some funny lines in there. The banter between Garrett and Eduardo is always funny. Like, to me, like that's one of the highlights of the show, is like how well that's kind of done. But that being said, they also kind of underutilize Roland to some degree, and then Kylie's kind of hit or miss with how much they have her in things.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there was, I don't know if
it would be funny to see them have a. Well, I mean, they've done it now. But it would have been funny back then to see the black person actually be funny for a change.
Yeah,
I mean, Winston's funny, but in a different way. He's not Bill Murray funny or anything, It's
yeah,
a completely different style.
And they try to do something a little bit different, right? He's kind of like the tech nerd, he's kind of that combination of Egon and Ray. And so I did appreciate that they do that, but I just felt like for all the diversity and stuff they put in the series, there's a few things that are kind of hit or miss just with writing of it. And that's probably just from different writers trying to write these characters, and you ever only had one season to really work with, so I mean, you didn't really get to develop a lot of those things. And there was no movie or anything that came before to like really set these characters, personas and stuff out, so you had a good grasp of who they are, and you could write for those people based on what you'd seen. Now, one thing that I did find funny was when this thing torches the Ecto-1, and then they're driving in the Ecto-1 a few minutes later, and it's like dented. I'm like, well, that thing was on a fucking full-on fire. How the hell is that even drivable? So, it's just some like little oversight shit in there, right? And it's nothing like too distracting.
You've seen planes, trains, and automobiles. That thing was on full-on fire, and then they drove it.
Yeah.
Do you think that the automobile is safe for highway travel?
I do. I really do.
I can't let you continue on in this vehicle.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, the other thing that I thought was pretty cool in this episode was like when the dragon breaks through, I'm just going to call him a dragon, is when he basically breaks his head through a creature feature movie into the movie theater, like as there's a creature on there and you see everyone in the crowd wearing 3D glasses.
Yeah.
Because 3D movies weren't even a thing at the time, so the fact that they like went through the trouble of animating that was like oddly strange to me, but it was also very satisfying, like see something break through a movie. I like it when you like have a play of like real life crossing over with the movies like that. I get a kick out of that shit. So
They clearly did the 3D glasses, so it's like a joke on things coming out of the screen at you. It's like it's coming at me.
Yeah, exactly. I get why they did it, so.
But, yeah.
And then they let Slimer...
I mean, they do that in Gremlins, you know.
Yeah. So then Slimer has kind of a bigger role in this one than he usually does, right? So he kind of brings the scepter out to try to help stop this thing and winds up reviving this monster, comes back, and then goes on a rampage again after that, and Slimer's like, oh, fucked up.
That's what I was going to say. They kind of introduce his arc at the beginning of the episode where no one wants to hang out with him because he's not important and shit.
Yeah.
So it's a really tiny background B-story arc, but it's there.
Yeah, they try to mix some of those layers in there, right? And then he comes back, but then there's another continuity error, which little shit like as a kid you don't really think about, but like watching it now, I'm just like, okay, you guys could have made a few changes and really made this much better. Like after Slimer goes in to sacrifice and stop the tornado after they catch this dragon, Slimer's up there getting sucked around this tornado, and then they think, you know, like I think Roland says, oh, he sacrifices Afterlife to save our lives. Which is kind of a funny sentence to say anyway. You're just like, I mean, what do you think happens to a ghost? You think he got sucked to another parallel dimension? And he was wearing the proton pack, and then like he comes crashing down and slimes Eduardo, and the proton pack's nowhere in sight. So my question is, where the fuck is that proton pack? Like, where did it go? It's just gone. Just disappears. And then, you know, Eddie's even getting sentimental, much like Peter would in certain episodes. You know, like, I would say Slimer's almost like a cat, right? Because cats can be assholes when they want to be. But, like, you still always, like, care for your cat, right? You care for your, you know, your pets, but your cats, like, even when they're buttheads, you're still like, all right, whatever, I get it, you're a cat. Like, right, that's just how you operate. You're not blindly loyal, but that's kind of how Slimer is in some of these, like, right, where he annoys the fuck out of them at times, but every time, like, something's, like, really at risk for him or something like that, they always, like, have that change of heart. And so, you know, Eduardo's getting sentimental about him and, like, man, he saved us. And then he immediately gets slimed. And then, you know, Kylie smooches on Slimer, which that was another weird part of this episode. But, hey, it's the 90s. What do you expect?
It made me feel weird in my downstairs special swimsuit place.
If that's what you call it. I thought that was your OnlyFans special.
And I call it my Slimer.
No comment.
Yeah. Either that or I'll call it my Ivan Ooze.
That's more appropriate. Because it's purple.
It's purple and fucking veiny.
I can't even say that. I just had to stop.
You can say it.
No, I can't say it. I can't say it. You're sick, Mom. You know, that's just
purple and
sick.
veiny.
If you guys ever thought we were like a PG-rated podcast, we've probably proven you wrong.
If your parents tried to stop you, just throw it in their faces.
Oh, my God. You're going to go to hell when you die.
It.
You're going to go to hell when you die. You're going to go to hell when you die. And so am I.
Yeah, well, the devil gives sweet-ass hand jobs, man.
That's what I heard.
He you know.
He invented warming lubrication.
I was gonna go into detail about the anal pleasures that he provides you while he hand jobs you, but I'm not gonna do that for the sake of our listeners. But
that'll be on your OnlyFans later.
Yeah, that's the Halloween special. What else is going on with you?
Nothing too wild, man. Just excited for your move to come up here. Ready to get back into action on some stuff. You know, so I built that proton pack, my Novos proton pack. And, like, I'm constantly, like, still going through doing things to it. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be perfect, right? Because there's a lot of people that have built one. And then they'll just, like, start building another. And another and stuff. And I'm just like, I'd rather just upgrade the one I have. Like, I'm pretty happy with it overall. So, like, I added a real Dale resistor on it, and then I added some, because the way the motherboard screws onto this one isn't, like, movie accurate, which is weird considering it's an officially licensed proton pack. So, riddle me that, Batman, but I added some of the hex head nuts or bolts on there to thread it in, so I faked a few of those just to be more movie accurate with the looks. And then I'm looking at some other actual real resistors on there. So, and then constantly upgrading the spirit pack as well. There's definitely things on there that I've upgraded and changed recently. Like I got rid of the old crank knob that was on there. I had it just sitting behind my resin cast replica, but you had to keep it at the same angle to hide it, and I finally just busted out the Dremel and Dremeled that out and kind of filled it in and did some touch-up paint on it. And so just really enjoying the process of working on those props again and wanting to do more of that. Like I've also got some Star-Lord stuff I want to fix up, like the blasters and things like that. So as we kind of get into cool season and stuff like that, I've got some winter projects that I'll have to keep me going and stuff like that. So
yeah,
just because I like that creative outlet, but at the same time this podcast is very satisfying for that too. So I don't feel like I'm ever just like sitting around completely bored with nothing creative to do. Like there's always multiple things going on.
Right.
And then like I've got that Gibson and Barnes flight suit that I was kind of upgrading, so trying to make that as movie accurate as possible. So I restitched on my No Ghost logo on that and my name badge, and just need to figure out what I'm going to do with the leg hose connector on there. So I was talking to Nick about it, right? On my current suit that I had before that, I had it, set up so I could Velcro it on there, but I didn't try that in an event. But another member of ours said, he had some issues with that. Some guys had said they'd tried magnets before, but I was thinking of like putting a magnet in a pocket so it wouldn't fall off in the back if someone bumps your leg, because Nick had said that, if someone bumped into the leg hose, the magnet would drop off on the back side of the suit and the hose would fall off on the other side. So I'm thinking there's a pretty easy way to engineer something better for that and make it available.
Yeah. Mine 3D printed one, I think I told you I just sewed it on there because I was like, fuck it. Plus the hose comes out of it, so I don't have to, whenever I wash it, it'll be fine.
Yeah, and I mean, I've thought about just getting more like leg hose connectors, right? But I mean, some of them, like a good one that actually looks good, somewhat is usually between like $20 to $25. So it's just like, well, do I want to buy that for every costume, or do I want to be able to make it over? And then my big thing is just I don't want to wear out the suits unnecessarily by throwing that through the washer and dryer with that on it all the time, which if you turn it inside out, it's not a big of a deal, I guess. But, if you've been to a con, there's definitely some like serious BO stuff at a con, so you never want to be the fucking stinky person. So you want that fucking clean jumpsuit so you're fresh, presentable, approachable, like you're there to make people smile, have a good time yourself. You don't want to be like somebody that smells. So those are always the types of things in there, like keeping that stuff fresh, pressed, nice. So, but I am looking forward to having you up here so we can work on some of those props together. Like there's definitely things I think we can do to your spirit pack to make it look much better. And then obviously we're going to work on some larger props and building some props. So as we start doing these things, expect some videos. Once I get my Spangler wand in, I've got a few things on that I'll immediately upgrade. So, and then for anyone that's interested, so I've seen a couple of things on there. So, and I'm not sure which movie it is off the top of my head without looking it up, but one of the Spangler packs in the movie had two of the same clippered valves, two of the R331s. And that's the shorter one that doesn't thread out as far. It's like a short thread on it, so it threads close to the end of the valve there. And then the 701 sticks out a little bit further on that, which is typically what you see on the wand itself. But based on what I've seen from the movie and from what a few other people have said, that the Spangler wand is based on the wand from the movie, where it's got two of the 331s on it, and it's not a 701. But I bought a 701 to put on that Spangler wand just so I have a real one on there, right? Because we talked before, like, how much that was bothering me. I'm like, man, that thing just doesn't look good at all. Like, the shape's off on it. It doesn't look accurate. I'm surprised even Clipper, like, allowed
I think it's the worst thing on there.
It is. Hands down, it's the worst thing, right? And then there's that other button at the end by that orange hat light that I'm going to put a real one on there. So I know somebody said they tried to do that or were thinking about it, but they thought there was some wiring underneath it. So we'll see. I don't have any problem with making it look more like a movie prop on that one. So
right.
But I do want to upgrade that. So I'll probably do some videos on that, just kind of showing you what I'm doing for upgrades. And then I've already seen some people take some of those wands apart and show you what you can upgrade. So like gbfans.com did a pretty awesome pic showing like all the aluminum parts and upgraded parts that he has readily available that fit from his shop right onto those. So there's some cool stuff you can upgrade if you're into that, right? So and still keeping
GB
it
News has a really good video on how to take it apart and stuff too.
Yeah, so there's a lot. I think that's pretty exciting for a lot of people in the Ghostbusters community right now, right? It's the first Afterlife merchandise. It's something different. It's something to play with and mod and get used to. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then, making it look a little bit more accurate. I know there's people that just wanted that for all the functionality of it and didn't care that it was even from Afterlife, but they wanted to upgrade the grips on both ends to like movie 1 style grips. Mm-hmm. Which I totally understand that, right? For that price point, it would be hard to beat that, right? And just to modify those, so...
Yeah, I've seen it done a lot of ways. I've already seen somebody literally just spray paint the wooden barrel black.
Yep, and I've seen people...
And that actually didn't look terrible. It just looked different and customized in a different way, so...
Yeah, and I've seen some people cut, like, the fake tape off the back of there, which, doesn't have the real wand grip all the way through it, which is... Right, I get it, right? If you're going to put that tape on there, why do that through the whole way through?
Although I do think that is the second worst thing about the wand.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you look at it, like
under.
Hasbro has that there, they could easily just do another version with a different grip on there and have the same rest of the parts. So I wouldn't count them out from releasing a Ghostbusters 1 style, like classic Neutrona wand that's from the original movies.
I would like to see a slime blower, at least the gun. That'd be cool.
Yeah, and I guess we'll just wait and see what Hasbro's got in store. So I just think there's a lot of cool things going on with that, and then we've got some mashups going on, or some things we're talking about doing. Like, and I still want to get some new patches made up for our podcast, and then we're going to order some more patches for the Midland Empire Ghostbusters. I know we did an order of enamel pins for the Midland Empire Ghostbusters, so just stuff like that to do some fundraising and just have some more merch out there available, because people are always asking for it. And I ordered a bunch of bookmarks and buttons before the pandemic, right before Planet beginning of the year that got delayed. So Planet Comic-Con's the big Comic-Con in Kansas City, so I guess we'll just kind of wait and see. But we're going to have a lot more video content once Alec is relocated up here, and just try to manage the channels that way. Just obviously we'll be keeping the podcast as is, but we'll have some video podcasts and some other things and just some extra content. Like, we'll really have the YouTube channel as kind of a secondary channel for content that just goes along with the podcast. So we want to be able to show that out there, right? But what else is going on with you besides packing and getting ready to move up here?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just dealing with the stress of that, the anxiety. But as Ted Mosby in How I Met Your Mother once said, something about, you're doing something right if you're afraid to do it, basically. So.
Yes, that's like a jump-off point, right? Living in your comfort zone, you're never going to get to the next level.
Yeah, so...
And that's why,
that's how I know I'm doing the right thing, so...
A healthy fear there, right? So I think that's good.
I come up there and... yeah, well, it's just because, I'm coming up there without 100% a job, or obviously a real place to live. And I'm coming up there to find those, so... And I've never really had trouble doing either of those things, so I should be fine.
Nah, you'll have it, and it'll just allow us to do more with this, and really kind of grow the brand of what we're doing here. Like, it's a lot of fun. Hopefully the listeners are enjoying it as well too. And that'd be another thing. Like, right, if you give us a 5-star review on iTunes or any of the
Yeah.
things that allow you to do a review. It just helps with people doing that as far as noticeability and visibility in there, right? And recommendations based on what you liked, you know. And so that's why we're always trying to have a fairly detailed podcast description. But expect some more exciting things coming from us.
Tell your friends about us and shit, you know?
Yep.
People who would like this kind of a podcast, let them know, hey, there's this kind of podcast. I mean, half the time all they do is talk about Alex OnlyFans and RC Cola, but...
Exactly. So the other thing I know...
talk about Alf a lot.
I'd mentioned our mixtape project, and I think for us that's going to be something we do this winter, probably after we finish up all the Halloween content. And if you don't have a cassette tape player and you want to get into that, like Walmart's got one for like $25 that I think has an aux-in, Bluetooth, and does several things there. So there's some brand new cassette decks available for those types of purposes. So just to make that kind of old school mixtape. So I know we're talking about doing that and mailing them around to people. So I just think that'd be kind of a fun way to mail some stuff around and like provide some cheer, because they're also selling blank cassette tapes at Walmart as well now. So.
Yep, right next to them.
Yep, and I think Target's even got some tape decks and stuff in there now. Like, there's definitely some nostalgia value to that, and just, I mean, hell, even some of like the secondhand stores that did not used to, like, there's a place near me called Vintage Stock. There's a couple of them, and they started carrying cassette tapes, and they didn't used to. For the longest time, they didn't have audio cassettes, right? It was like they just weren't there. They'd buy your vinyl or your CDs, but now they have even the cassette tapes, which is just kind of a sign of the times. I mean, it's like our VHS collecting, right? You just want that physical format. Some of it's for the nostalgia value.
Do they have VHS there now?
I don't think they really have much VHS, but, you know, they do have, like, laser discs and certain things like that. And they do have some of the Disney VHS tapes, like, in the clamshells there. Just kind of depends on what location you go to. So, but there's still other, like, toy stores around, like Mockingbird Lane out in Lawrence. They're getting ready to move to a new location, but he has some VHS tapes that he sells, so...
Yeah, I bought from Dusk Till Dawn from him.
Yeah, so a lot of cool stuff going on out there. And obviously, if you got anything you want us to mention on the podcast as we grow our fan base and our listenership, if you got something you want us to advertise for you, something local, especially in the Kansas City area, or maybe you're working on a movie yourself, something you want us to mention, we'd definitely be happy to give some shout-outs to those things there. You know, we talk about the places we like, Screenland Armor, 1313 Mockingbird Lane, just some of the cool local places that we're lucky to have. So if you got something like that you want us to mention or check out, you know, throw it out at us. We'll give it a shot. Mention it on there if we like it, and do those things. We want to build a community around what we're doing because we really enjoy this. So.
Yep. Well, we're about 2 hours in, so we'll probably end this episode this week.
I was going to say that pretty much wraps up what I got. So I hope everyone's having an amazing week out there. We've got a pretty fucking excellent action-packed spooky season. We've got everything planned out. Alec and I went through and planned that last week, and he did a teaser up on our Instagram and Facebook so you can see what that's all about. But we've got some good stuff in the works, so we're excited to get that up to you.
Yeah, just for you guys listening to this right now, a special little glimpse at next week. We're covering From Dusk Till Dawn and Tusk, as well as our top 5 Halloween costumes we wore growing up.
Did you mean what you said back there?
See it back there? I got so fucked up.
I know, it's Quentin Tarantino at his finest.
Yeah.
All right, kids, we will talk to you next week. Enjoy the show. Hope you guys have an awesome week, and we'll return
next Tuesday.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
These are my dinner guests, the Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers. These are my dinner guests, Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers. These are my dinner guests, the Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers. These are my dinner guests, Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers. Frog Brothers.
Shut this off. Shut these all off.